Catherine is a princess and she behaves like a princess, although she wasn't born a princess.
This evening, Buckingham Palace has confirmed a development that is already being described as one of the most decisive moments of King Charles's reign. In a rare second formal address to the nation, delivered just hours after the conclusion of President Donald Trump's high-profile state visit, the King singled out Catherine, Princess of Wales, affirming her position as the future Queen Consort. The declaration was clear, deliberate, and impossible to misinterpret. It placed Catherine directly in line, not only as William's partner on the road to the throne, but as the woman who would embody the future of the monarchy itself. Observers were stunned by the timing. Only days earlier, the palace had been forced to confirm that Queen Camilla was recovering from what was officially described as an episode of acute sinusitis. But beyond the medical phrasing, whispers had already circulated across media and diplomatic circles about whether Camilla could sustain the relentless pace of royal duty. She had missed key appearances, including the funeral of the Duchess of Kent, and though she re-emerged during Trump's visit, sources suggested her recovery was fragile at best. It was against this backdrop of uncertainty that the King's words landed like a thunderclap. For Charles, the moment carried echoes of his very first address in September 2022, when he honoured his late mother, Queen Elizabeth II, and named Camilla as Queen Consort. That was then a moment of closure, a decision rooted in tradition and continuity. Tonight, however, the tone was different. It was not about honouring the past, but about securing the future. His choice of words carried both urgency and subtle finality, positioning Catherine as the central figure to carry the monarchy forward. "It is with the greatest confidence," Charles stated, "that I affirm Catherine's future as Queen Consort. In her, I have seen the devotion to duty and the constancy of service upon which this nation depends." The statement was brief, yet its implications were vast. Commentators immediately noted what was left unsaid: a quiet but unmistakable shift away from Camilla's prominence. The timing, too, was strategic. President Trump's state visit, with its carriage processions, banquets, and signed agreements, had showcased the monarchy's diplomatic strength. Yet behind the glamour, the Queen Consort's limited presence had not gone unnoticed. Catherine, by contrast, was visible at every step, speaking confidently with foreign dignitaries, engaging warmly with guests, and demonstrating a composure that reminded many of the late Princess Diana. Royal watchers remarked that Catherine seemed to step into the spotlight almost naturally, filling the spaces where Camilla could not. The announcement did more than signal Charles's trust in his daughter-in-law. It addressed an unspoken crisis. For months, the monarchy has wrestled with questions of sustainability. Charles himself is still undergoing treatment for cancer, and the burden on both king and queen has raised concerns about the institution's stability. Elevating Catherine, explicitly, officially, and with such timing, was a calculated move to reassure the public that the line of succession is not only secure, but energized with a younger, more resilient presence. Reaction was swift. Across social media, hashtags praising Queen Catherine began trending within minutes. Supporters hailed the decision as modern, compassionate, and forward-looking. Yet not everyone saw it as a seamless transition. Traditionalists expressed unease that such an announcement came while Camilla still wears the crown, interpreting it as a signal that her reign may be shortening before the nation's eyes. Insiders paint a more complex picture. According to one source close to palace staff, Camilla herself was taken aback by the wording of Charles's speech. While she had been briefed that Catherine would be praised, she reportedly did not expect the affirmation to carry the weight of inevitability. It sounded less like a compliment, the source explained, and more like a replacement plan. Political analysts noted another dimension. By linking Catherine's future to the conclusion of Trump's visit, Charles underscored the monarchy's role as both a symbol of tradition and an engine of continuity in global diplomacy. The message was subtle but effective. The United Kingdom's alliances may change with elections, but the crown's future is secure in William and Catherine. For Camilla, however, the address casts a long shadow. At 78, with health already fragile, the Queen now finds herself in an unenviable position, still holding the title, but increasingly overshadowed by her daughter-in-law. Royal commentators described it as a moment where one Queen Consort is being publicly prepared to take over from another, not after abdication or death, but during an uncomfortable overlap. As the broadcast faded, one truth was unavoidable. The monarchy has entered a new chapter. What was once speculation has become strategy, and what was once a polite possibility has been confirmed in the King's own words. Catherine has been declared the Queen Consort of the future. The only question now is how soon that future will arrive, and at what cost to the woman who still holds the crown. The King's words are still echoing across news cycles tonight, but to fully grasp their weight, we must step back to the defining legacy that shapes every decision inside Buckingham Palace. The monarchy of Charles is not being built on empty ground. It stands in the long shadow of Elizabeth II, a reign that defined constancy, steadiness, and duty for 70 years. And in that comparison, Camilla's position looks more fragile than ever. When Elizabeth passed in September 2022, Charles delivered his first historic address. It was a moment of mourning, but also of reassurance. He confirmed that Camilla would be known as Queen Consort, a title that had once been divisive, yet which he insisted was necessary for continuity. That announcement was couched in respect, wrapped in loyalty, and ultimately accepted by a nation grieving the loss of its monarch. For a time, Camilla's presence seemed solidified, her image rehabilitated through the King's public devotion. But 3 years on, the tone has changed. With Catherine now directly positioned as the next Queen Consort, the inevitable comparisons surface. Elizabeth, the unyielding matriarch, Diana, the people's princess, and now Catherine, the poised modern consort in waiting. Against these icons, Camilla's tenure appears increasingly like a temporary bridge, tolerated but never celebrated. The King's latest speech, in the eyes of many analysts, acknowledges this reality. Insiders say the palace has been quietly preparing for this pivot. Documentation revealed by sources close to royal advisors suggests that as early as 2023, strategies were drawn to gradually elevate Catherine's visibility. These plans coincided with Charles's cancer diagnosis in 2024, which sharpened focus on succession and the long-term viability of the monarchy. At the same time, aides reportedly debated how to manage Camilla's role delicately, preserving her dignity while ensuring she did not obstruct the generational shift. One particularly telling revelation comes from a leaked briefing paper that, according to reports, outlined the Queen Consort's function as ceremonial stability rather than executive continuity. The phrasing implied that Camilla's reign was never intended to be permanent in the fullest sense, but rather transitional, a placeholder until Catherine's readiness could be presented to the nation. If true, this places last night's address not as a surprise, but as the culmination of a long-brewing strategy. Royal observers argue that Catherine embodies precisely what the monarchy needs in its current climate. Her work on early childhood development, mental health, and family initiatives has given her a reputation for empathy and accessibility. She resonates not just with traditional monarchists but with younger demographics who have often felt disconnected from the crown. In this sense, Catherine is not only being prepared as Queen Consort, she is being framed as the bridge between Elizabeth's era and a modern monarchy fit for the 21st century. The contrast with Camilla is striking. Where Catherine projects youthful energy and global relatability, Camilla projects resilience tinged with fragility. Her recent health absences underscored this perception. Although the palace insisted her condition was acute sinusitis, insiders admitted that recovery had been slower than anticipated. Social media amplified doubts, with speculation that her health struggles might be compounded by exhaustion or other underlying issues. For the public, the perception is simple. Camilla looks increasingly unfit for the relentless duties of the crown. It is this perception that Charles's speech seems designed to address. By elevating Catherine so openly, the king shifted the conversation from frailty to continuity. Analysts described it as a sleight of hand, diverting attention from questions about Camilla's ability to serve toward a narrative of renewal embodied by William and Catherine. But the unintended consequence is clear. It also casts Camilla as the Queen Consort, who is being phased out before the world's eyes. Experts note that the monarchy is no stranger to such transitions, though they are rarely spoken of so bluntly. In the past, figures like Prince Philip were gradually sidelined due to age and health, with little public acknowledgement until retirement was announced. What is unique here is that Camilla remains Queen Consort in title, yet the king has already declared her successor in a role that traditionally is not contested. This creates an unprecedented dynamic: two queen consorts, one present, one future, coexisting in a way that blurs the lines of authority. For Charles, the calculus may be straightforward. His reign has been overshadowed by constant questions: his health, Camilla's stamina, the slimmed-down monarchy, and the relevance of the crown in modern Britain. By affirming Catherine now, he not only calms uncertainty, but also invests in the one figure who consistently commands public admiration. In doing so, however, he places Camilla in an unenviable spotlight, not as a partner to the crown, but as the partner being quietly prepared for succession while still on the throne. Reactions among courtiers remain guarded. Some emphasize that the king's words were simply a gesture of confidence in Catherine, not an announcement of abdication or replacement. But others admit privately that the effect is the same. The Queen's position has been weakened. One insider confided, "And everyone knows it. Catherine is the future, Camilla is the present, but only just." The symbolism is difficult to miss. At a time when the monarchy is navigating both personal challenges and global scrutiny, the institution has chosen to anchor its stability not in the current Queen Consort, but in the next one. Elizabeth's memory lingers as the gold standard. Diana's image rises as the emotional compass, and Catherine now steps forward as the living embodiment of both. For Camilla, it is a reminder that even within the palace walls, crowns are not always as secure as they appear. As the days unfold, this shift in tone is expected to reshape not only public expectations, but also the dynamics within the royal household itself. Catherine has been declared, Elizabeth's shadow looms, and Camilla finds herself standing in the most precarious position of her tenure. The question now is whether the monarchy can maintain the delicate balance between honoring the queen who still serves and preparing the queen who is poised to replace her. In the wake of King Charles's announcement, another name has risen from history to dominate headlines once again: Diana. The late Princess of Wales, whose legacy has haunted and inspired the monarchy for decades, has suddenly been cast in sharp relief by the elevation of Catherine. For many observers, the connection is not just symbolic but almost prophetic. Catherine's growing role as future Queen Consort seems to echo Diana's path, reawakening comparisons that the palace has long struggled to control. The timing of these associations was no coincidence. During President Trump's state visit, cameras captured Catherine greeting guests, engaging in conversations with foreign dignitaries, and presenting herself with a quiet but commanding elegance. A short clip of Catherine speaking with Melania Trump circulated widely on social media, with thousands commenting on the uncanny resemblance to Diana's warmth and composure during similar diplomatic events in the 1,980 seconds. Side-by-side images spread quickly, with commentators dubbing Catherine the People's Queen too. This is where the tension grows. For decades, Diana has represented the ideal of compassion and connection with the public, while Camilla has represented a reminder of the past controversies that fractured the royal family. To see Catherine now openly praised as Diana's successor in spirit and officially declared as Queen Consort in waiting only reinforces the sense that Camilla's reign is fragile and transitional. It is not Catherine who is being compared unfavorably, but Camilla, Insiders at the palace admit that the resurgence of Diana's image is not entirely unwelcome. One aide confided that Diana's legacy is a double-edged sword. It once threatened to overshadow the monarchy, but now it strengthens Catherine's standing. The public sees her as fulfilling what Diana could not. In other words, the very ghost that once haunted Charles's marriage is now being used to validate his daughter-in-law's future. The effect on public opinion is profound. Polling in recent months has shown consistent admiration for Catherine, but following the King's speech and the viral comparisons to Diana, her approval ratings have soared even higher. Hashtags celebrating Queen Catherine were joined by others invoking Diana's memory, with many users posting that the monarchy had finally come full circle. Camilla, by contrast, finds herself cast as the unspoken rival to a legacy she cannot compete with. Commentators note that no matter how diligently she has served in recent years, Camilla cannot embody Diana's symbolism. At best, she represents endurance. At worst, she represents the figure who once stood in Diana's way. Against Catherine, who is increasingly seen as Diana's spiritual successor, Camilla's position appears even more tenuous. For Charles, this creates a paradox. He has spent much of his reign trying to consolidate Camilla's acceptance, ensuring her role as Queen Consort was beyond dispute. Yet by affirming Catherine so decisively, and by doing so in a climate where Diana's memory is alive and potent, he has effectively shifted public loyalty away from his wife and toward his daughter-in-law. It is a move that might stabilize the monarchy's future, but it also destabilizes his present. Analysts describe this as one of the monarchy's most delicate balancing acts in decades. "We are witnessing an overlap of three consorts," one historian remarked. Elizabeth as the eternal gold standard, Diana as the emotional memory, and Catherine as the living promise of continuity. Camilla is the only one without that timeless resonance, and she is the one wearing the crown today. This observation highlights the peculiar drama unfolding. The crown that Camilla wears is technically secure, but symbolically, it is already slipping. The King's speech confirmed Catherine's future. Diana's shadow reinforced her legitimacy, and the public has begun to see the monarchy less as Camilla's present and more as Catherine's destiny. The palace, aware of this shift, has reportedly discussed strategies to limit direct comparisons between Catherine and Diana. Yet the effort may be futile. Every appearance Catherine makes, whether with charities, children, or international leaders, draws echoes of Diana's compassion. The more Catherine shines, the more the past reverberates, and the more Camilla is eclipsed. And so the cycle continues. Diana's image, once a source of conflict within the royal family, now serves as Catherine's greatest ally. It is a transformation that both the public and the palace understand, even if few will say it aloud. Catherine is not just being prepared as Queen Consort, she is being cast as the fulfillment of Diana's unfinished promise. For Camilla, the symbolism is brutal. In a single moment, her decades of rehabilitation are overshadowed by a woman who is no longer alive, and by another who represents that woman's spiritual continuation. It is not only her health that is in question, but her relevance. The monarchy, meanwhile, finds itself at a turning point. The question is no longer whether Catherine will one day be Queen Consort. It is whether the crown can sustain the presence of two consorts, one living in fragility, the other rising with inevitability, while the memory of a third continues to haunt every step. As the nation absorbs the King's declaration and the surge of public admiration for Catherine, attention is turning to the Queen Consort, who still wears the crown. Camilla, the Queen's recent absences and visible fatigue have already fueled speculation. But tonight, the conversation has shifted beyond her health. Insiders now speak of an atmosphere of tension within the palace itself, as Camilla faces the growing reality that her position is not only weakened, but actively threatened. During the state visit of President Trump, Camilla's limited presence was carefully managed. She attended the state banquet and the official welcome, but observers noted her subdued demeanor and the long intervals where Catherine stepped forward to engage in her place. A striking moment occurred when Catherine, alongside William, handled a high-profile reception without Camilla present. Commentators described it as a subtle handover of duties. "It felt like Catherine was already the consort," one broadcaster remarked, while Camilla faded into the background. Behind closed doors, this perception has not gone unnoticed. Reports suggest that Camilla was angered by the king's choice of words in his address, particularly the explicit affirmation of Catherine as Queen Consort of the future. One palace insider claimed, "The Queen had been told Catherine would be praised, but she did not expect such a direct statement. It was interpreted as a warning that her reign is being shortened in plain sight." How? The Queen's health has become the central narrative, but analysts argue that the issue runs deeper than illness. The monarchy is facing a crisis of legitimacy. Traditionally, a consort's role is not questioned unless abdication or death forces a change. Yet here, the king himself has created an overlap between present and future, leaving Camilla to confront a question no consort has faced in modern history. What happens when you are still on the throne, but your successor has already been named? This unprecedented situation places Camilla in an extraordinarily vulnerable position. At 78, she has struggled to match the pace of a modern monarchy that now expects visibility, adaptability, and digital resonance. Catherine, by contrast, thrives in those very arenas. Where Camilla appears weary, Catherine appears energized. Where Camilla is cautious, Catherine is seen as relatable and natural. It is a comparison that no amount of palace messaging can soften. Public opinion reflects this dynamic with brutal clarity. Polls conducted after the king's speech show overwhelming support for Catherine's eventual role, with more than 2/3 of respondents describing her as ready now. Camilla's approval, meanwhile, remains lukewarm. Sympathy for her health struggles is real, but it does not translate into confidence in her long-term capacity. Analysts describe this as a compassion gap. The public wishes her well, but few believe she represents the monarchy's future. Inside the palace, the mood is equally tense. Courtiers face the delicate task of managing appearances, ensuring that Camilla is not publicly humiliated while preparing Catherine to step more visibly into consort duties. The balance is precarious. Too much focus on Camilla risks highlighting her fragility. Too much focus on Catherine risks confirming that the transition is already underway. For now, Catherine's rising prominence speaks for itself, whether or not palace officials acknowledge it. Observers point to Charles's strategy as deliberate, even ruthless. By affirming Catherine, the king reassured the nation of continuity while subtly acknowledging Camilla's limits. Yet it is a move that has consequences within his own household. Sources suggest that Camilla has expressed frustration privately, questioning why her contributions are being overshadowed. One aide described her mood bluntly. She feels as though the crown she fought so long to wear is slipping away, not because of scandal this time, but because of inevitability. The narrative has shifted irreversibly. Camilla is no longer viewed primarily as the queen consort of the present, but as the consort whose tenure is running out. Catherine's readiness makes that transition seem not only likely, but imminent. The king's words have set this perception in motion, and there is little that Camilla, or anyone else, can do to reverse it. For historians, the comparison is stark. Few consorts in British history have faced such a precarious overlap of power. The last major disruption of this kind came during the abdication crisis of 1936, when questions of legitimacy forced seismic change upon the monarchy. Though today's circumstances are far less dramatic, the symbolism is no less striking. The institution is once again confronted with a queen whose place is in question, and so Camilla finds herself in a position that no royal title can protect her from. Still the queen, yet overshadowed. Still present, yet increasingly absent in the eyes of the nation. Desperation may be too strong a word for palace officials to use, but analysts agree that her reign now exists in a state of uncertainty. The monarchy, meanwhile, moves forward. Catherine's star continues to rise, William's role grows stronger, and Charles seeks stability in transition. For Camilla, the crown rests uneasily. She may hold it still, but each day makes clearer the truth that Catherine is already wearing it in the minds of the people. As Camilla struggles with a crown that grows heavier by the day, attention has shifted decisively toward the couple, poised to define the monarchy's next chapter, William and Catherine. The King's declaration has not only affirmed Catherine's destiny, but also intensified the spotlight on their partnership, a duo increasingly seen as the stabilizing force that will guide the institution into the future. During President Trump's state visit, this dynamic was on full display. At receptions, diplomatic dinners, and informal gatherings, William and Catherine operated with a seamless rhythm, presenting an image of unity and strength. When Camilla was absent or subdued, Catherine stepped forward without hesitation, her composure and charm filling the void. Analysts describe this as more than simple substitution. It was the visible manifestation of what many now call the soft succession, a gradual public transfer of symbolic authority from the King and Queen to the Prince and Princess of Wales. This strategy has long been part of palace planning, but recent events have accelerated it. Insiders report that a set of briefing papers circulated among senior advisors earlier this year, outlining Catherine's expanding portfolio of responsibilities. The document suggested that Catherine should assume visible consort functions alongside William, in preparation for the eventual transition. That preparation is no longer discreet. It is unfolding in real time, visible to the world. Observers note that William's role in this dynamic is equally critical. As heir apparent, he embodies continuity, but it is Catherine who embodies renewal. Together, they project a balance the monarchy desperately needs: stability rooted in tradition, combined with relatability that speaks to modern audiences. This balance is not accidental. According to a senior palace aide, William provides the framework, but Catherine provides the connection. That combination is the monarchy's future. The King's speech only reinforced this perception. By naming both William and Catherine as the anchors of the crown's future, Charles drew attention to their partnership as the monarchy's central narrative. His words emphasized Catherine's qualities: empathy, resilience, dedication to causes. But the message was broader. The crown is not just passing to a king, it is passing to a king and a consort, united in purpose. Public reception to this image has been overwhelmingly positive. Catherine's approval ratings, already high, have reached new peaks. William, often viewed as reserved compared to his wife, benefits from her rising star, appearing steadier and more approachable in her presence. Together, they are seen not only as heirs, but as the embodiment of the monarchy's evolution. This perception carries political weight. Analysts point out that the monarchy's survival in the 21st century depends less on ceremony and more on relevance. In a world of social media, rapid news cycles, and generational divides, the institution must prove its value continuously. William and Catherine, with their family-focused image and carefully curated causes, are ideally placed to bridge that gap. The King's address, far from a symbolic gesture, was therefore a strategic move, a formal endorsement of the only figures capable of carrying the monarchy's legitimacy into the next generation. But within this celebration lies a sharper truth. The elevation of William and Catherine is happening at the direct expense of Camilla. Each appearance by the younger couple highlights the contrast with the Queen's fading presence. Each compliment directed at Catherine underscores Camilla's perceived shortcomings. The monarchy may present this as a seamless team effort, but the reality is that one Queen Consort's rise is being matched by another's eclipse. For William, this balancing act is deeply personal. He remains devoted to his father, conscious of the King's health challenges and the weight of his reign. At the same time, he is fiercely protective of Catherine, ensuring she has the platform and recognition she deserves. Palace sources suggest that William has quietly supported Charles's decision to affirm Catherine publicly, viewing it as both a necessity for the crown and a shield for his wife. He knows what his mother endured, one insider explained. He wants Catherine protected, not questioned. This connection to Diana's legacy continues to shape perceptions. Many see William and Catherine as fulfilling the destiny that Diana once envisioned, a monarchy that is both regal and humane, formal yet approachable. Every step they take together strengthens that impression, while every stumble from Camilla reinforces the contrast. The soft succession is therefore more than symbolic. It is practical, emotional, and deeply strategic. The king, facing his own vulnerabilities, has positioned William and Catherine not just as heirs, but as partners in a monarchy that must adapt or fade. For the public, the effect is reassuring. For Camilla, it is devastating. As the weeks progress, the signs of this transition will only multiply. Catherine is expected to take on more high-profile engagements. William will assume additional ceremonial duties, and the narrative of the monarchy will increasingly revolve around their partnership. What began as speculation has become structure. What was once a distant prospect has become present reality. The heir and the consort in waiting are no longer waiting. They are leading, visibly and confidently, even as the Queen Consort struggles in the shadows. And with each passing day, the question grows louder. Is the monarchy already living in the reign of William and Catherine, even before Charles's crown has passed? The stage is set for one of the most delicate dramas in recent royal history. King Charles, battling his own health concerns, has made clear that Catherine is the future Queen Consort. William and Catherine now stand at the forefront, embodying the monarchy's renewal. Yet Camilla still wears the crown, and therein lies the tension that cannot be ignored. For the first time in modern memory, Britain finds itself with two Queen Consorts, one reigning in the present, the other already declared for the future. It is a dynamic that blurs tradition, confuses protocol, and fuels speculation about how long such an overlap can last. Royal commentators describe it as a quiet storm inside Buckingham Palace, Catherine rising with inevitability, Camilla struggling to maintain her dignity, and the king trying to hold balance while history accelerates around him. The conflict is not open, but it is palpable. Every appearance by Catherine draws praise as the monarchy's future, while every absence by Camilla raises questions about her present. Analysts describe this as the dual consort paradox, a situation where legitimacy is divided, and loyalty slowly shifts from the crown that is worn to the crown that is promised. Charles's decision to affirm Catherine may have been strategic, but it has left Camilla exposed. Her decades-long climb to acceptance now looks precarious, overshadowed by a woman who has not yet inherited the role, but has already won the nation's heart. Inside the palace, aides admit the priority is to avoid public friction, but behind the scenes, the reality is stark. The Queen is losing her ground. The monarchy, however, seems to have chosen its path. By linking Catherine's future to both Elizabeth's legacy and Diana's memory, Charles has built a narrative of continuity that bypasses Camilla entirely. For the public, this feels less like succession and more like inevitability. For Camilla, it is the cruelest reminder that even a crown can be temporary. And so the story concludes with a question, not an answer. Can the monarchy sustain two queens, one fading, one rising? Or is a more decisive shift inevitable? The king has spoken, the nation has listened, and Catherine has already begun to lead. The crown may rest on Camilla's head today, but in the minds of the people, it belongs to Catherine.